Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Wednesday morning. It is already. Man, we have got a lot to talk about. Dudley Dawson's going to join us here in just a minute from hogville.net. And he was texting me last night when I sent the link for the show that we do always the night before the show. And he said, made a good point. No. Okay. All right. I made a good point. He said, what are we going to have to talk about tomorrow morning? And I said, well, golly, I can't think of anything. I mean, there's no news out there. It's been pretty dull. The SEC the last few days. God, man, what is there not to talk about? That's what I love. People say, what do you talk about, Browne? College football season's over. Well, it never ends. And it rolls into basketball. It's already started almost a month ago. You got baseball, you got recruiting, and you just got the drama. And that's why these programs in the SEC are so good is they don't ever stop trying to get better and trying to get better players, better coaches, and what all. So here we are. I'll bring Dudley Dawson on in here right now. And Dudley, I don't think anybody I'm not surprised by the news that Arkansas has made a commitment to the rowing team and the rowing program. But is there any other news you want to talk about?
Yeah, our Arkansas basketball playing Duke tonight. Should be a lot of fun.
Right? You're muted. We got you on mute. I can't. Yeah, unmute yourself, Dustin. Dusty.
I'm not
Dudley.
Muted. I'm not muted.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I've got you. You're muted. Unmute yourself. Okay. Oops.
I'm not muted.
All right. Work through this. Let's see here. Okay. Unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yourself. Okay. All right, Dudley. Can you see that? That's the problem you got. You're muted. I can't hear you. Well, you're not muted. Reboot and try it again because I can't hear you. We're going to take a quick break. Well, actually, he's going to try to reboot himself. But, I want him to talk about this news over at Arkansas because it's a big story. We got news at A&M we're going to talk about with their football coach, Mississippi State. We've been talking about it this week. And it's just been interesting because I think a lot of people are wondering, how serious is Arkansas? I mean, I even read people saying, that Arkansas proved how unserious or not serious they are when they kept Sam Pittman. So I don't know. Dudley, is this better?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. For whatever reason, I could not hear you, but that beautiful background soothes the pain. But any news you want to talk about over there in Arkansas? The wheels are up. The unfasten your seatbelt signs are on. Feel free to smoke a cigar if you'd like, and we're all ready to listen. Dudley Dawson.
Volleyball plays in the NCAA tournament on the Friday. Arkansas plays basketball tonight against Duke at 8:15, and a former coach has returned he is returning. I think he's already here. I think the plane went and got him last night. They'll probably have the announcement today. But I got to tell you, I went into yesterday. The Arkansas Activities Association, who runs high school sports in Arkansas, had a teleconference with 10 coaches yesterday, and you can watch my face during those 10 things as this thing began to build, and Bobby Petrino's name was out there, and then it was a possibility he was being vetted, and then he was going to be the guy. You could see my quizzical face as the day went along, but it was it's something. And I'm going to be honest right off the bat. I've said a lot of things over the years about Bobby Petrino, many of them private, some of them public. I was not a fan of his personally when he was here.
Yeah.
Didn't think he was a great guy. There's so much more behind the scenes than the affair, which I knew, by the way, which I knew about before it came out. But I don't run TMZ, so that wasn't something I felt needed reporting. But I will say this, you know, this is a home run hire, and it's going to go one of two ways. It is either going to go spectacularly great or spectacularly bad, and I'm here for both of them. I mean, I don't like boring. You know, the worst thing people would call me after I pass away would be boring or normal. I don't like that. I like chaos. This is fun. It was a Tuesday to remember yesterday, and I'm ready. I'm ready to jump in it. You know, hey, again, it's either going to be fantastic or it's over. But I think it is an attempt by Coach Pittman or the athletic director, Hunter Yurchek, the booster, somebody. It's an attempt to go all in, and here we go.
Yeah. Well, I kept saying in my head when Jimbo got fired at A&M, what's Bobby Petrino going to do? He desperately wants to get back, and he's done his apology tour. You know, he's been to the Little Rock Touchdown Club, which is one of the best touchdown clubs in America. And he was giving, standing ovation. And, you know, and I know people, I don't know him. I know people that do, and they say, you know, he's kind of rough, but you're looking for results. And Sam Pittman wants to win. The Arkansas fan base wants to win. And I'll throw some of the things I read on these text threads. And I've got guys, you know, in the hunting club that are Arkansas fans and graduates, and they're seriously, they're vested in financially vested in the program. And one of them made a comment that keeping Sam Pittman proves without a doubt Arkansas is not serious about college football because they don't want to pay his buyout. Well, you know, these buyouts aren't cheap, but getting Bobby Petrino, we know that we all know what happened 11 years ago. We all know what happened with Hugh Freeze. We know what happened with Bruce Pearl. You know, you better hope they don't do it again. But at the same time, Bobby Petrino is a results guy. Everywhere he goes, he's going to get results. And he's going to be working with Travis Williams as defensive coordinator, was a member. He was a linebacker on the 2002 Auburn team when Petrino was there. So, you know, they can rekindle their old acquaintances.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I'm not about to say not to be holier than thou. You know, certainly I've made mistakes in my life, and you know, a lot of them have been out there for people to see. But you know, you bounce back, and certainly those in the fan base who are saying second chance, and they're saying it loudly, will get their opportunity for it to happen. You know, I also am not, but the other thing is also I'm not going to be disingenuous. I'm not going to sit here and say I've never said anything bad about him.
Yeah.
I respect him as a coach.
Yeah.
You know, I'll allow that he may have changed his ways. He certainly, you know, says he has. Mm-hmm. He doesn't owe me anything.
Yeah.
He was never mean or whatever to me. It wasn't that. It was stuff, you know, other stuff. But I'm not going to sit here and be holier than thou. I'm not going to sit here and be disingenuous. We'll see how it works out, and I'm here for it. I've got some new stuff to write about.
Yeah, you do, and you look at what he does. The knock on him has always been he's a jerk. He's rough around the edges, and he doesn't like to recruit. And everybody remembers the Monday Night Football game, the Falcons. He left and went to Arkansas, but he had Arkansas on the verge of really big things. They were really good, scary good, with Ryan Mallett at quarterback. And he gets hurt in that Auburn game in 2010. Tyler Wilson out of Greenwood comes in. You look at the quarterbacks that he mentors, he works with. They're outstanding. I will say this. My gut reaction after the Auburn win at Arkansas was, you can't fix this. It's broken. And at the same time, I was saying, but you can't afford to fire Sam Pittman and his assistants and go buy new ones. You can't be doing that every 3 or 4 years. No program can. It doesn't work. The money that coaches are paid, fans' patience is less. It's just where we are right now. But I think strategically, Bobby Petrino is a great hire. Again, I don't know him. You do. You've been around him. I'm taking your word for it. And I also know some coaches who have coached with him that I don't think they exchange Christmas cards.
Yeah. The analogy, I think, back in the day was when Coach Petrino and Jessica Durrell hit the ditch in on the motorcycle, that the program went into a ditch and stayed into a ditch for quite a while. Now, there have been some good seasons in there, not necessarily great seasons, but good seasons. And I think it's safe to say that even if it got back on the road, the program is back in the ditch now. You had to do a Hail Mary. You had to do something. There are a lot of people who are against this, and certainly their criticism is valid. Their opinions are valid. There are a lot of people who would have let him come back if no matter what he had done. They just like to win. But that's the situation Arkansas is in right now. And I was explaining to somebody yesterday that, not his biggest fan, but this may save Arkansas football for the next few years. And I also got a text yesterday said, hey, do you think he will become the head coach if Sam Pittman and Arkansas doesn't do very well next year? And I said, well, if Arkansas and Sam Pittman doesn't do very well next year, it's going to be in partly because of the offense, so probably not. Yeah, everybody's got a vested interest here.
Yeah, they do. And that's a good point. And that's what I was going to say is, Bobby Petrino's name has been coming up at Auburn for 20 plus years, every time there's a coaching vacancy. So it's a risk when you hire someone like him, but if you win 9 or 10 games, who knows? Now, is Jacoby Criswell going to be your quarterback? Is he going to convince KJ Jefferson to stay for a 9th year in college? I don't know. Now, look, you're wearing your Cowboys hat. Thanksgiving Day, I'm up there in Clarksville at the mother-in-laws and the in-laws at the food-a-thon, 9 hours straight, watching football with Jerry Kirby and everybody. And, I mean, Dolly Parton, a new member of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader squad. I mean, when we're 76 years old, we should all hope to look that good. I mean, that's a lot of planks and push-ups and just it's a lot of repair work as well. So. Yes, but certainly Mildred does not look like that. She's got to be in her 90s now. But Dolly Parton, that was awesome. And I got to say this, growing up, our whole family, when you had 4 channels, and then remember when the UHF channel came, Dudley, with the circular antenna that would go in, our family, it was like Sunday mornings, we went to church, went to lunch, and we watched the Cowboys play. And I told you, in 1971, Mom and Dad came back with an autographed football by that entire team with 47 black and white pictures, all autographed. They got to meet Tom Landry, and they may have been playing the Eagles, but they got to go down on the field and meet everybody. I don't know what my parents were there for, some meeting for architecture or something. And I got all that stuff, and I kept it, but I played with that football in the street. What would that football with Dwayne Thomas, Walt Garrison, Bob Hayes, Bob Lilly, Roger Staubach? You had Craig Morton was the backup who later went on to the Broncos. But I got to say, when you had the Cowboys, Vern Lundquist was, I think, the play-by-play, and Brad Sham, and just growing up, that I was a Cowboys fanatic. And you remember DX trading stamps at the DX gas stations? Yeah. You'd get that book, and you had the 47 members of the team, and every time you got gas or whatever, you got trading stamps. We used to go to the one at Summer and Mendenhall in Memphis. I mean, it would be a 16th of a tank. Oh, we got to go get gas, Dad. We got to go get. But I'll never forget, one of the hardest ones to get was Jan Stenerud, the field goal kicker for the Chiefs, and Garo, your premium for the Dolphins. But when the Cowboys are rolling, Dudley, I mean, I'm so fired. I mean, I follow every team that has an Auburn player, but your childhood team always pulls back at you. What is it about the Cowboys? Just that we grew up playing Cowboys and Indians every day. We grew up, watching Matt Dillon. There is something hypnotic about the Cowboys. And when they're winning on Thanksgiving Day, what is it? Describe it as a great writer that you are.
I mean, it is heaven. It is heaven on earth when they're playing well, and then it's hell when they get into the playoffs. I will say that my initial team was the Kansas City Chiefs because Lynn Dawson being their quarterback. Ended up talking my parents into naming my late brother after Lynn Dawson. I loved Ed Podolak.
Yes,
and those just those great names, and just really enjoyed. But somewhere along the way, the Cowboys entered my TV set. One of the 3 channels that we had back then. That was before PBS came around. And just fell in love with the larger than life stuff that they had there. In 60 years that I've been a fan or whatever, a lot of those years have been fantastic. Some of them have not. There's been a lot of laughter from both my side and the anti-Cowboy fans along the way. Yeah. But just like I started this thing off and talking about Bobby Petrino, it's always interesting. There's always a story. And they continue to draw great ratings because people love them and people hate them.
And you look at those crowds, and Arkansas is a Cowboy state. I mean, Jerry Jones, I was talking to a man who's friends with Jerry Jones, and he was actually at the Arkansas-Miami game in 1987. I think Miami won 51-7. I know I was in Knoxville that day for the Auburn-Tennessee game and ended up in a 20-all tie. And we were at the hotel with my parents. I'd driven up from Auburn with a friend, Ears, my boy, from Thomasville, Alabama. And we're watching that game. Ken Hatfield was the coach at Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to this man at a dinner in Jonesboro back in March. And he told me this story. He said, I'm there with Jerry Jones. And he said, you see that fella right there? And I said, yeah. He goes, right there. That was Jimmy Johnson. He goes, I'm going to hire him, and I'm going to buy the Dallas Cowboys. And I think he put together $165 million and bought the Cowboys. But my mom still isn't over him firing Tom Landry. I mean, that was like a father figure. She loved the favorite picture she's ever had is a picture of Tom Landry and Dick Vermeil with their wives and their mink coats. That's indelibly ingrained in my brain what there is of it. All right, but the Cowboys are magic. All right, question here from Clarence Beeks: is the NIL alive and well at Arkansas? And everybody loves to spend opium. You know what I mean? Other people's money. Talk about it. What you know about it?
Well, obviously the Arkansas Edge was the thing they announced yesterday. Should have seen this coming. Should have seen something else coming because I thought, man, this is a strange time to announce, an NIL after a 4-8 season, and everybody's disappointed, and you really stuck it up in the last game, and really, maybe 3 of the last 4 games. Strange time to announce it, and then later on we see why it probably got announced in the same way. It is tough to announce this, on a 4-8 season and basically tell the fans, hey, if we're going to get better, you've got to help us pay the players. But that's exactly what this did. And this happens all over the United States. It's not just an Arkansas thing. You've got to play the NIL game. I don't care if you don't like it. It's the way it is now. You didn't like the Yankees and the Cardinals winning all the World Series back in the day. Well, you had to go out and spend money. And just like back then, there's no salary cap here in college football as of yet. So you announced Bobby Petrino. I'm sure that some funds will come rolling in. I've always thought that Arkansas did okay in NIL, but I don't think they're anywhere near those who reside at the top of the SEC on a regular basis. This is an opportunity and a gamble that you're going to get the fans to jump in and support. I think that Coach Pippen has said some things, and boy, I love that dude as far as, just being a good dude and all that. But his press conferences, some have left you lacking, and it's not inspired a lot of, trust in the fan base and all that. So maybe we'll update that over the season too. Come in there, be confident, talk about what you're going to do, and then go out and do it. That's the bottom line. You got to go out and do it. This season was a cluster.
Yeah.
From start to finish. Should have known in that first game that the offensive line, when they didn't push, a 1AA team around, that it was going to be an issue.
Yeah. I've learned this too. I go back to my late friend Mark Green, one of the smartest people I've ever known. He was the original blogger for Inside the Auburn Tigers, but he wrote about football around the South. I mean, he would invoke passages and writings from the Fugitive Poets, and you as a great writer know about the Fugitive Poets and the agrarians back in the 1920s, the Vanderbilt writers. And his father-in-law was a man named Madison Jones, the writer in residence at Auburn. And, just your typical great Southern writer. He was a Welshman. First time I met him, he was smoking a cigar, drinking a scotch, just the great Southern writers. And I remember so well just some of the things that he would say about, matchups and what's going on now in college football. But I think what grabs me is he would say, matchups are great on paper, but what matters most is how do you match up on game day? And I look at Arkansas, and, Jackie Sherrill said on the show about a month ago, I love having him on. He is a truth broker. I mean, he's a lot of fun, and he's very smart, very prophetic. He said something that really jumped out. He said, I said, you think they'll fire Jimbo? Oh, yeah. He goes, $85 a barrel oil. Yes. Well, one thing that really helps Arkansas is, and they got everything. They got bauxite you make aluminum with, oil, natural gas, $14 a bushel rice. It's a good year. I mean, we're in Parkin, 30 minutes from Memphis. It's been a great year for the rice crop over here. Outstanding. They've got a lot of money. So Dudley, there's Little Rock, there's Northwest Arkansas, then there's those farmers in the Delta. There's the Murphy oil people down in El Dorado, how do you pronounce it?
El Dorado if it's Kansas, El Dorado if it's Arkansas.
Okay. All right. But they've got a lot of money. I mean, the people I know that are Arkansas graduates are super successful, very smart people. Who is the most important figure when it comes to rallying the Arkansas fan base right now? Is it Sam Pittman? Is it hiring, Bobby Petrino? Who is it? Eric Musselman? Who is it?
With the success that he's had, Dave Van Horn and Eric Musselman are the two that are the, and really Musselman is more of the rallier. He's more of the social media presence and all that. It needs to be Hunter Yurchek. This is a hire of Bobby Petrino. I'm sure his hands were all over that. So this is taking a chance, but you're taking a chance. You're going for it instead of sitting around. If you had, here's what I want to say: there were names being thrown around that were as offensive coordinators. Brendan Marion at UNLV, Buster Faulkner at Georgia Tech. I think one's 36, the other's 42. Nothing in their background that would have been a hindrance that needed vetting and all this. Those two guys will probably come in here and have done a good job, but they would not have swayed the fan base as the polarizing figure that Bobby Petrino is. There are people who are doing backflips, and then there are other people who are, shrugging their shoulders saying that they've sold their soul and all this. Some of those are the same people who said they should have let him stay, which it wasn't about the affair. It was about the aftermath of it. It was about the $20,000 for her to buy a car, building an office next to his in the new building. It was just not going to work. But again, as I said, I'm not going to be disingenuous and sit here and say, hey, I really liked him. but I'm also not going to say that I don't think he's a great football coach, a great offensive mind. If he has the players, he's going to get it done. In there lies the question. Now that you have the transfer portal, now that you have NIL, can you recalculate revamp your roster in one season with an offensive line? Can you either take the quarterbacks that are here and make them better, or are you going to bring in somebody? I mean, people were floating Will Rogers' name yesterday. Everybody was just throwing stuff against the wall to see if it sticks. But that's going to be, you wanted to have an offensive coordinator in place by this weekend when you start bringing people in. In the transfer portal, you I guess technically can get in it Monday, but everybody's jumping in it now, or a lot of people are. So you're making contact, and it's going to be a hell of a couple of weeks here.
Well, it will. And you think about it, you have to fire your coaches now in about the 9th or 10th week if you're going to do it, because you've got the December signing period. You look at Auburn when they announced Christmas Eve that Brian Harsin was the coach. He'd already missed the December signing period. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, he had to scramble and get what he could for the February signing period. And now this season, you had only one player on that Auburn roster from that original class. A lot of people will tell you Auburn basically has been on probation the last 3 years. And it has been, with that ragtag roster of transfers and, whatever you want to call them, orphans, misfits, whatever, they're not. They're players. They're somebody's kids, and we love them. And we want them to do well. But Hugh Freeze rallied those guys, and they fought their asses off Saturday. And I'm trying to find out if Auburn can write off the loss to Alabama for tax purposes as a charitable donation. I don't know if they can, but I woke up again during the middle of the night I'm having nightmares about it.
Well, I think it's the thing now where if you lose a political race or you lose a game, you can file a lawsuit and said you were cheated in some way. And, my God, man, I thought of you when the pass landed in the end zone. Yes. They maybe ought to send some more rushers.
Yeah. And give Alabama credit, because you've seen SEC shorts. This is absolutely.
They're gonna have a ball. They're gonna have a ball with Petrino.
Yeah, and here's what SEC shorts was good this week. I hadn't seen it yet. It says Milroe is looking for a receiver. Still looking. Bama receiver is tying his shoe. Still looking. This Alabama quarterback drop back is being brought to you by City Cafe. It's just unbelievable. I likened to one of the Auburn guys was playing patty cake with the Alabama offensive lineman. I'm going, what are you doing? And I had picked Auburn to win. And another friend of mine we both had the same exact, I couldn't believe it. I had picked Auburn to win 27-24. People said, are you nuts? I said, no. I said, you cannot take what happens the week before and automatically think that's going to happen the following week, whether you win or lose the game. You know what I'm saying? That's why you come off the field. It determines how you're going to approach the next day and the next day and the next week. But now go back to that Cowboys game, though, again. Dave Schultz is going to join us here in just a second from the GOAT down in Lafayette, Louisiana. Covers the Raging Cajuns. He's covered, been in Mobile. He's back in Raging Cajun country, followed Billy Napier before he went down to Florida. But he's from Syracuse, so he knows sports, not just in the South, but all over the country. As he says, a lifelong Q's Nation fan. He's suffered a little bit, but we're going to get into a lot of stuff to talk about. And hang on with us, Dudley, if you can. Love having you on here. And I'm getting a lot of stuff about the Cowboys. I'm trying to see here. Somebody had just said, grew up Steelers fan and loved the Dallas Pitt rivalry. Who didn't? Hall of Famers all over the field. Mean Joe Green, Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swann, Franco Harris, Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, Too Tall Jones. That's T-O-O, Kerry. Make sure we get that right. Jones, Randy White. But I'll tell you something. I was talking with a friend last night on the phone. He said as a kid, when I was a sophomore, Terry Bradshaw came in a limousine. His dad is a sports writer and knew him very well and came and picked him up from school. I'm like, how cool would that be? Unless you were a Cowboys fan, See, Dudley's over there going, no, I'm not. But
no, I still would have accepted the ride.
Yeah, that's right. But Dudley, real quick before we're going to take a break and come back, Dave Schultz will be with us. Tell people how they can subscribe to all of your great work, because as you said, what are we going to talk about? Really, it's what is there not to talk about, because it ain't just football. It's Razorback mania. There's a ton to talk about.
Yeah, hogbill.net is our website. We cover every sport up here at the University of Arkansas, and it's going to be an interesting week. So Otis and I and Kevin McPherson and others will have plenty of stories on everything going on up here. Also, the high school site is fearlessfriday.com. 5 state championships this weekend, 2 the following weekend. One of my favorite times of year.
Yeah, it is. All right, we'll be right back. More sidelines after this.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here. We're going to bring in David Schultz. And let me say something real quick about a new sponsor that joined us yesterday, Justin Ross, the Vitamin Shop, 2 locations, one right now in Olive Branch, Mississippi, another one coming soon down in Oxford, Mississippi. I've been going to the Vitamin Shop for a long time, get my shot blocks there, goo, energy drinks. Bottom line is they've got supplements, they've got probiotics. They've got people in there that actually know what they're doing. You're not going to go in there and ask people for assistance, and they're just going to try to get you to buy the most expensive thing. You're going to tell them what you're trying to do, taking care of yourself, active. The more active you are, the better you are. But the Vitamin Shop, you're going to be learning a lot about them. They're sponsors of the Rebel Yell Ole Miss Report with Yancey Porter every week, and you're going to be hearing a lot about what they do on the show. Justin Ross, a lot of you know him. I've known him a long time, played college football over at Rhodes. He's an attorney in Memphis. He and his partner, again, 2 locations, Olive Branch, Mississippi, and Oxford, Mississippi, the Vitamin Shop. Honored to be associated with them and have them as a sponsor. David Schultz, this is Dudley Dawson, hogville.net up in Fayetteville or Springdale right now. And as he said, there's nothing to really talk about in college athletics right now. Why don't you join us? No compelling stories.
You gotta love that. I'm gonna call you when I need my new casein protein. Right, I can go get the Vitamin Shop. I'm gonna use your name there, Rob Browne.
Absolutely, it's good stuff. And that is, I go there a lot. It's a great store. Love it. All right. Wait. Anyway, Dave, let's
By
talk
the way,
about,
I heard you dissing.
Yeah.
I heard you dissing my Orange. No. Hold on a second. I heard you dissing my Orange. Did you see them throttle LSU last night? Throttle LSU. Just saying.
Yeah. No, look, I've been watching Syracuse since I was a kid. Literally, we had a class called Career Economics in high school, and one of the things we talked about was sports. And they showed Syracuse, Earl the Pearl Monroe. They showed all the in Syracuse. When I was a kid, Syracuse was that school along with Kentucky and Madison Square Garden and all. Right. And Dudley, you know about Q's Nation. I mean, Jimbo.
I remember when I was born 60 years ago.
Dudley,
I think when I was born 60 years ago, Mayhem was just starting coaching in Syracuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dudley, he's faking. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's made that mistake before. It's not Earl Pearl Monroe. It was Pearl Washington at Syracuse. Get it right, Rob.
Yeah. No. But I mean, and I mean, it is unbelievable. And I know you are a proud Q's Nation graduate.
Yeah. You got a beautiful frozen face there, Rob.
Yeah. Now I get that wrong every time. Why I get that's one of the things about being OCD. When you make a mistake, sometimes you can be obsessively stupid on it. Right. But no, Syracuse has had unbelievable tradition, but you are down here in the South now, and you're covering University of Louisiana, the Sunbelt, all the stuff going on. Let's get your progress report on what that league did this year, and got a lot to cover.
Well, I mean, they went all LeBron James, right? In Miami, not 1, not 2, not 3. 12 teams are going bowling. 12. The only 2 teams aren't going bowling are Southern Miss, which had a disappointing year, and ULM. Well, they were ULM, and they fired their coach. So you had teams like ODU, which, Rob, I think the over-under for ODU is 1.5 wins. They had 5 in the conference. Texas State had a new coach. They're going bowling and won 6 times for the first time, won 6 games for the first time ever. Arkansas State got outscored 110-3 in the first 2 ball games, and Butch Jones was certainly on the hot seat, and they're going bowling. The only, South Alabama kind of befuddled. Yeah, I don't understand what happened there at all. I'd love to know. Go all hashtag always the bright side, because now Kane Womack, unless he gets the Indiana job, is probably coming back. And the Georgia teams just fell off, right? Georgia State, I think, was 6-1 when they beat the Cajuns and haven't won since. And I think Georgia Southern's lost their last 4 ball games, so they tanked. Marshall kind of had an up-and-down season, but heading into the last weekend of the regular season, guys, 3 Sunbelt teams, all at home and all favored, all had to win to go bowling, and they all did. Cajuns destroyed ULM. Marshall jumped out to a big lead over Arkansas State. And ODU, in, I don't know if it's ODU fashion or not, but certainly in thrilling fashion, 4th and goal from the 3 with 3 seconds left to go, needing a touchdown. And Grant Wilson does a QB draw. It was a sight to see. You had Ricky Ronnie's wife jumping into his arms. I mean, I'm sure he would have been on the hot seat if he was winning 1.5 2 ball games, but Sunbelt had about as good a season as you can have. I don't understand why Troy is not in the top 25. Anybody else in America has won 9 in a row. They have 1 bad loss to Kansas State, and they lost by 2, in the middle of September to JMU. So I don't understand why they're not ranked. I'd put Troy up against Clemson any day. Let's see how that works out. So it was a really good football season for the Sunbelt overall. JMU and Troy were picked to win, and they did, although JMU is not eligible. App State, by the way, rebounded. They kind of had an up and down season, and they've won a bunch in a row. So should be a great championship game, Troy and App State. Yeah.
No, Dudley, jump in here. I love college football and sports all over the country. And you got a guy locked on Sunbelt, David Schultz, and he can pivot and cover it all, but jump in here.
Well, the first thing I'll say is that it takes big ones on 4th and 3 to run the ball. But the thing was, I'm sure it's so surprising to everybody else that it worked. But what a call! If it goes right, you're a genius. If it doesn't, you don't know what you're doing and all those things. But yeah, the Sunbelt, and obviously we get a lot of Sunbelt information because Arkansas State's in the league and the newspaper, covers a lot of Sunbelt teams and all that. But it was a wild year for them in the terms of I'm sure the SEC would love to have as many successful programs, or at least, programs that are going to the bowls and stuff. I mean, it's just a great year for the Sunbelt. My former head coach, Bill Keedy, was the radio guy for Arkansas State one time, so he kept me informed on stuff about Arkansas State.
Yeah, and David,
well, they put up
talk about
two weeks ago.
Yeah, no, you're talking about James Madison.
No,
go ahead.
Well, okay, so first of all, Dudley, like you said, run the ball on 4th and 3. There, in my book, there's a difference between gutsy and ballsy, and that's ballsy. Going forward on 4th and 3 from the 50 is gutsy. Running it 4th and 3 at the 3, that's ballsy.
Yes.
All right, so JMU, they went up from FCS to FBS, and it's basically 2 years to make that transition. I was told by somebody who covers the sport, it's basically there to make sure that you're serious about the move financially, gives you a chance to recruit the players, but it's also there to make sure that you don't recruit FBS players and then head back down to the FCS. Which is ridiculous, because you can easily make a rule that says if you move up to FBS, you can't go back for 5 years. And if you do decide to go to FCS, you can never move back. That is set in stone. So you can fix that rule. But JMU, they won the East last year. They were picked to win the East this year. They did. They obviously had that huge weekend against App State where they were hosting game day, but they didn't get the waiver. Then they lost. The only thing bad that weekend was the game. They lost in overtime. And so they were going to sue and then didn't. And so I think they stopped. I think they may have gotten some pushback from the Sunbelt saying, hey, it's one thing going to New Year's 6-day bowl, but now you're really just kind of pushing somebody else out of the Sunbelt championship. So who knew what was going on there? And so they're going to go bowling because not enough teams qualified with 6 wins. So they're going to go bowling. I posed on Locked On Sunbelt today, why not have the winner of Troy and App State play JMU? What? Who says no to that?
Okay, Dudley.
Right? You put that somewhere in the Southeast. Don't
frozen.
put it in Texas.
New
Mexico.
You were on Sunbelt, Locked On Sunbelt today. What did you propose? Dave, we lost you there for a second.
Oh, yeah. So why not have the winner of Troy and App State, who's the Sunbelt champion, right, play JMU in a bowl game? Right, some of these bowl games, like you got WKU and ODU playing, are they going to get 10,000? But if you put a Troy bowl game in Montgomery or in Birmingham, it'll be a home game. But JMU won't care, right? Put JMU in there; they'll welcome the opportunity, and and it's not that far for JMU fans to travel. You'd sell out some of these games because some of these bowl games, especially in the middle of the week, do not draw because people can't get away from work, and it doesn't interest them anymore. But if you put a JMU bowl game against App State or Troy, the winner, you would have especially in some of these smaller stadiums, like in Birmingham, you'd get 30,000, 35,000. It'd be perfect. But because it's too easy and too smart, they won't do it.
Yeah, and those of us who love college football would tune into that for sure, because you want to see 2 really good teams play each other, not necessarily 2 Midland teams play each other, which is what we see in a lot of these bowl games.
Yeah. Yeah. And David, what I love is the fact that, quality, again, I don't care who it is. If they're keeping score, I'm going to watch it. But too often stuff that does make complete sense that we don't do. I want to ask you about some big picture stuff in college football. We're going from a 4-team playoff to 12 teams next year. And will James Madison be eligible to make it? Because that's where the Harrisonburg, Virginia. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about, because that's going, my son made a point this year early on. He said, man, every weekend's like March Madness now in college football. And I think that's great for the future of the game.
I do. I'm a big fan of the college football playoff. I think it'll get to 16 teams. I think that's enough, right? And it doesn't matter if it's 4, 8, 12, or 16, right? The team that doesn't get in is always going to complain. I think by the time, in fact, it may only be 1 year, right? So now there's a bye for the first 4 teams, so they don't play at home. I think that'll change. I think it will need, the first 4 teams to play at home because, again, filling up a stadium of 100,000 is a lot, right? This is not playing basketball tournaments where you have 8 games or something along those lines, or 4 games and 8 teams where you can fill up an arena that's 20 to 25,000. You're trying to fill up a stadium that's 100,000. That may not be that easy unless you're on campus. And if you're asking them to do it 3 times, that's even tougher. So I'm a big fan of that. The thing is, Dudley, that I am really interested to see, and it probably won't take that long. If you think there's pressure, and I think we've talked about this before, Rob, if you think there's pressure on these college coaches now, miss the playoff 2 years in a row. All right.
Yeah.
He's done a pretty good job. The defense sort of stinks, not sort of, but this defense stinks. Brian Kelly misses he can win all the 10 games he wants, but Brian Kelly misses that playoff 2 years in a row. He's on the hot seat. If
and
Napier,
Ryan Day,
same thing, right? Yeah. You miss the playoff. If he only loses one, he won't. But you start missing the playoff a couple years in a row, you're going to be out. Now, that may not be fair. That may be fair or not fair, but that's going to be the reality. Some of these places, right? We'll see how Mike Elko does at A&M if he misses that playoff 2 years in a row. That's going to be rough.
As they say, the market will dictate.
Yeah, and here's the question I have for you. I'm going to throw it at you. What about that Mike Elko hire? I mean, he's been at A&M a couple of years. He goes to Duke and wins, and people are going to say, well, if you can win at Duke, you can win with all they have at A&M. We've heard that storyline so many times. Jimbo had a national championship ring, okay? What is the deal at A&M? I know, Dave one time was a yell leader at A&M. Somebody explain to me those cheers. What's going? Can somebody do it?
Well,
anybody. I don't. I mean, they're fans. I love them, but I don't get those cheers.
So I'm with you, Rob. I don't quite understand it. Right? They do. Josh Pate thinks it's a great job, and it's a great job because you do have the facilities, you have the money, you have the support. Right? The thing is, what you don't have any history outside of losing. Right? People are out there on Twitter. Tell me you can't win a couple of national championships at A&M. Well, I'll tell you, because nobody has. Right? Their last national championship is prior to the United States getting into World War II. We got a better chance of A&M going without a national championship for 100 years than we do have them winning multiple national championships. Now, I am not the biggest A&M fan, but the last few years I'm not the biggest A&M fan, but, the last couple of years to Jimbo hasn't really been fair, right? His quarterback has been knocked out. Haynes King, Connor Wegman, right? He's been with the backup quarterback almost from the beginning of the seasons. Mac Johnson. So it hasn't really been fair. At the same time, he didn't adjust, being asked multiple times. And there's a couple of stories. I think ESPN and The Athletic did a whole thing that he was stubborn in his ways because he got the contract extension. As far as Mike Elko goes, they got somebody they're familiar with. I don't know why they didn't start there. I was actually at the Louisville, Kentucky game, and going into that ball game, rumors were flying. After the game, it was a done deal. Later on, I'm tweeting out, if Mark Stoops is going to A&M, John Summerall from Troy is going to Kentucky. And by the time I woke up, that story was over. So I think they got the guy that they wanted. I think Mississippi State hiring Jeff Lebby was a good hire. So I think so far, I love the whole Fran Browne to Syracuse thing. Exactly what I was looking for compared to a Dan Mullen. Have somebody to get in there young, hungry. He can't turn it around fast. He's going to be learning on the job. And so he can really set the foundation over the next 3 or 4 years. And if it pops in year 3 or year 4, let him go take a bigger job. And maybe his offensive or defensive coordinator or position player stays back and continues what he's doing. So I think they got it right at A&M. It will be interesting to see how long it takes. And now you got Texas and Oklahoma coming in. So this is a gauntlet.
Rob, one of the more interesting things that kind of got lost in the shuffle yesterday with the Bobby Petrino things is it was Sam Pittman's 62nd birthday. Well, happy birthday, Coach Pittman. Here's your offensive coordinator that you're going to have. He was also 62. So instead of going young, they've gone veteran here. And I'm going to do some research, but I've never heard of a head coach coming back as the offensive coordinator at that same school. So it's weird.
Yeah, Brother Oliver came to Auburn twice. Go ahead.
I will say this about 62. JMU's, and I sort of led with this, and I used to do it, so I'm certainly not mocking him, but it does look a little funny. I happen to think Curt Cignetti dyes his hair because he is 62 years of age. I think there is some ageism there. He doesn't look, if you look at him quickly, he doesn't look 62. I don't think he looks 35, but you would think he looks upper 40s, lower 50s, but he's 62. So his next job is going to be his last. Yeah, there you go. So his next job is going to be his last. And there probably is a little bit of ageism. You know, I had people tweeting me back, he's probably going to wait for a big SEC job. I'm like, and if he doesn't get one soon, I don't think SEC's hiring him at 64, right? The idea is you don't hire somebody for 5 years, you hire them for a decade. So I think he colors his hair so he does look younger. Now, I'm blessed with, good skin. So and haven't been in the sun since I moved to Lafayette from the Keys. So facially, I don't look 54, but I am. But if you colored it, it kind of looks a little bit odd. And, no reason to do so, be honest with you. But I did that on Lockdown Sunbelt too, because I think there probably is a little bit of ageism, and he's trying to avoid that. Like Dudley said, he didn't realize that. He's 62. He coached almost 30 years before he got his first head coaching gig. Almost 30 years.
Wow. He was one of the names that when they thought they might fire Coach Pippen around here, it would be tossed out, and certainly some validity to it because he's done a great job there. It has a nice background.
Yeah.
Well, his father's in the College Football Hall of Fame. Yeah.
One of the things I'm going to throw this at you. We're having a little bit of a delay. I'm not sure if there's a Blue Jay on the line or what, but I didn't mean to be
spending
walking
too much
on
money on Ham's beer and not enough on your internet connection.
Yeah, we've got great new internet. I've got the box right next to me. I mean, it's direct internet. Can't hook it up and turn it on. Let's go. Yeah, it's on. But let me throw this one at y'all. You look at A&M. And then Texas, the same thing. As Franz Beard always says, only God and the Longhorns have more money than the Aggies. A $19 billion endowment at A&M, $42 billion at Texas. Yet Texas, since 1970, won national championship. A&M, 1939. And I know a lot of Aggie fans, and we got a lot of them that watch this show and listen. I love them. They're great. But there's a disconnect between the people that are making the decisions. I mean, how does Ross Bjork still have a job? He kept that poker face at that press conference when they were announcing they're getting rid of Jimbo and took no responsibility for creating this mess. Dudley, David, wouldn't you love to just ask him point blank, do you bear no responsibility for this and this cost? And $19 million has to be paid within 60 days to Jimbo. Then over an 8-year period, the amortization process of $7.2 million is paid to him for the next 8 years. Like Tony Barnhart said, players got to play, coaches got to coach. Where does Jimbo go next? Does he take the job at where? South Alabama if Cade Womack leaves?
I think he goes and moves next to Jimmy Johnson.
It was always the thing. To me, it was always the thing where Texas A&M overpaid for him, put too much on the buyout. He would have come anyway. But they said, look, we got all this money. Let's just throw it at him and see what happens, And then on the back end, they're paying for it literally. And it's one of those things that, again, I've never been what you would call rich. So I'm always guarded. I'm sitting here doing a budget, seems like every 3 days, making sure that we get what we need. But if I had unlimited money, I probably wouldn't do a budget, and that seems to be what they do down there.
Yeah, David.
Yeah. So if I'm Jimbo, I find the closest place to Jimmy Johnson's place in the Keys. I go down there, buy a boat, and start fishing. The thing that I'm not only is it the coaching carousel season, right? It's the Jimmy Sexton season. All these guys like we'll probably say John Summerall, who got won the Sunbelt championship last year. He's probably going to get a bump in pay, all right, because they're the only one who can do it, right? G.J. Kinney at Texas State, to make sure that he doesn't leave. He's going to get a bump in pay. But what Ross Bjork did, and I think he did take some responsibility because he was concerned that the old AD from A&M was going to take Jimbo and go to LSU, whereas you tell Jimbo, if you want to go to LSU, go, right? We got all this money. Correct. You got all the support. We've given you everything you wanted. We're not going to overpay you because you won one national championship and lost a playoff game with Jameis Winston. Haven't done much else otherwise, to be honest with you, right? It wasn't like he was doing Bobby Bowden where he kept on missing wide right and, in the top 5 in the nation every year. I would, Jimbo, if you want it, maybe we'll tack on a couple of years, but we're not giving you any more money. Go, and somewhere along the lines, like you said, these ADs think that there's only one person who can do these jobs. And I think we have like Nick Saban and maybe Jim Harbaugh, right? If you go back, nobody wanted that Michigan job, by the way, because their expectations are unreal, right? Dudley, you go back a couple of years, the most overrated team was always Michigan. They were always in the top 10, top 15 for no reason, and then they'd fall out by the end of the year. Then a couple of years ago, wouldn't you know it, they're not in the top 25 preseason for the first time in forever, and they get to the playoff. So, these guys, there's very limited amount of people.
I think you know this, Rob, and for transparency's sake,
Go ahead, Dudley.
One of my sons used to work for Creative Artists Agency, which I thought was going to be a great deal. I mean, I'll get a lot of scoops and all that, but he couldn't tell me anything. The only thing he ever told me was Peyton Manning was going to retire in an hour. So, I'm kind of glad he's in a different place now because, it did me no good.
Well, the thing that y'all just both brought up, the Michigan job from 1948 to 1997, and that's a significant year because Michigan was a co-national champion with Nebraska. That was their third national championship in a 4-year cycle. And Charles Woodson won the Heisman Trophy, went on, had a 17-year NFL career, but Michigan claims 11 national championships.
Hold on. What did you just say? Hold on. I got to go. What did you just say? Their third national championship in a 4-year cycle?
Nebraska, 94, 95, and 97. Oh, not
Nebraska.
Michigan, Nebraska. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, I thought
Dr. Tom Osborne. Okay. Sorry, I'm not insane. But the Michigan brand, and look, we all grew up watching Bo Schembechler. He was a tough SOB.
Always lose the big ball game. Always.
Yeah, but you look at the Michigan brand. Bo Schembechler, I'm a fan of his, but they claim 11 national championships, but 10 of them were prior to up to 1948. So yet if you turn on TV, and Michigan now can say they're the first program to ever win 1,000 games in college football. They just did it a couple of weeks ago. Now I like Harbaugh. He wears ugly glasses and he tucks his sweatshirt in. Nobody does that, but he does it. But he wins. But Michigan, we're told how great they are, but I'm with David. They're not.
They have been now. Not. They are for the last 3 seasons.
Now they are.
Seasons they've been. Yes. The last 3 seasons they've been pretty good, but generally for the last decade before that, they were always kind of overrated. Rob, I got to go, my friend. I appreciate you having me on. All right.
Hey, look, love it. We'll talk to you next week. Dudley, and you sit there and you start looking at it. What is going on? I think the problem that I see with Michigan and Ohio State is they've got so many people on the networks that are just putting them in your face. And we see it every year. Not that the Big Ten's not good, but Dudley, Michigan now is on a roll, and they're playing a 10-2 Iowa team. I don't think it'll be much of a challenge.
I don't either, but wouldn't that be fun? Again, as I started this show saying I love chaos, and that certainly would be chaos if that happens. I remember when they were ready to run Kirk out of town there at Iowa. Now he's back 10-2, and maybe he gets to stay around a few more years. You keep winning 10, they'll let you do that.
Yeah, and I'm looking here. Chris Lee's about to join us from the Southeastern 14 and Vandy Rivals up in Nashville. And I love talking to Chris about, what's going on at Vandy. Are they committed to winning? They've got a ton of money up there. Money alone isn't it doesn't get it, does it? You can look at A&M, who has more money other than the Longhorns. And are they winning national championships like Georgia or Alabama, a state with 5.1 million people? No, I'm not saying all of the Alabama players are from in-state, but Arkansas, less than 3 million. And they've whipped Texas most every time they've played them in the last 10, 15 years. How do you explain that?
And it's been something that Arkansas has gotten up for. I don't know that the Texas kids remember the rivalry from back in the day, but I do think that it's going to be fun having them back November 16th. They released that the other night. November 16th, Texas will be at Arkansas again. I'm sure Texas is ready for Arkansas to come to them instead of I think the last 3 games have been here.
Yeah, well, that is a fierce rivalry. I mean, it's fun. It's great for college football. It's another one of those ones that I grew up with. And look, Dudley, and if you can stay, we'd love to have you stay. But if you got to get going, I know you got a big
get going. I've got several stories to write, and I on all throughout the thing, I've had the email up over here. I'm waiting for the announcement of the press conference. I suspect it's coming today. There was a plane that flew in here last night from Conroe, Texas. It would seem like maybe that's, maybe that was where you might be coming from. But yeah, it's going to be a heck of a day here. As I said, Arkansas and Duke as well at 8:15. So,
well, and look, there is a ton to talk about. Hogville.net, and let me know how that press conference goes. That's going to be one that everybody in college football is going to be watching. But great,
going to be a little bit different than the last press conference I was at that he was at.
Yeah, I hope nobody shows up wearing a neck brace. That ought to be fun. Dudley, take care and be careful up there. All right.
All right, later, man.
Okay. All right. Let me say something about one of our sponsors, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Christmas is right on top of us, okay? They're open Monday through Saturday, normal hours, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Through Christmas, Sundays are open 1 to 5 p.m. They've got the largest collection of duckhead pants, shirts, jackets, vests, blazers, you name it. Duckhead everywhere. Barber, all the Barber jackets, the quilted jackets, the Beaufort, the long coats, everything. Shirts, sweaters. Barber makes great clothing. They've got it all at Hewlett & Dunn in Collierville. Old South jeans. I love these. If you wear a 34, you wear a 32. They've got another thing to remember. Over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. They've got kids' boots, kids' toys. This is something really cool. Pendleton Outdoors, great jackets, shirts. Schaefer Outdoors. Schaefer, these are the wardrobe consultants for Yellowstone. You can get Rip's jacket there. You can get John Dutton's ranch jacket he wears, that quilted jacket. Schaefer Outdoors makes it. They've got Rock Mount shirts. These are those long shirts, untucked, and you don't have to be overweight to wear them. They're for the lean and mean. But Elvis wore them. Ronald Reagan wore them. Bob Dylan still wears them on tour, okay? And the collection of boots. I just got some of these Danner, the low-cut hiking boots. I mean, I can run in them. And I run in my regular running shoes, but you can run. These are the best hiking boots I've ever put on my feet and most comfortable. They've got higher boots, light boots, Vask boots, Justin, Ariat jeans. Ariat's making vests. They're making jackets, coats, shirts, Wrangler. They've got more inventory than you've ever seen in your life. Charles Hall and his wife, Laura, unbelievable people. Raven, the whole crew out there. Hewlett & Dunn, Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square, Collierville, Tennessee, 111 North Center Street, HewlettandDunn.com. They deliver anywhere, okay? Here's a guy that reports from everywhere, and Chris Lee, Southeastern 14, Vandy Rivals, working, putting out great content. Look, you turn on the news, sports guys on TV get about 4.5 minutes. You got unlimited time. Chris Lee working around the clock. And now some of my best members of this show are guys that did sports on TV for 35 and 40 years. And when they're on this show, it's unbelievable. And you kept saying back then, same thing I say now, Chris, you need more time. And we give you all the time you got, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, love having you on here. We just had Dudley Dawson Hogville.net. David Schultz down at the GOAT in Lafayette, Louisiana. Nothing really to talk about in college athletics, is there? It's just boring. I mean, but
I can't keep up. I mean, I every time I go on with this, I'm scared something's going to happen that everybody's talking about that I missed because I was getting kids to school and stuff. I mean, it's ACC SEC Challenge coming off Thanksgiving tournaments. It's playoffs. It's rivalries. It's transfer portal. It's coaching changes. I mean, it makes you dizzy if you just step back and look at all of it.
Yeah. And I got to ask you, man, in Nashville, and I don't know, everybody, Auburn people are hoping they get to go to the Music City Bowl. And they're not going to play at the Skinner Box. That's what my wife calls Vanderbilt Stadium while they're retrofitting it. And by the way, my dad's an architect. I've grown up going out on job sites and pulling a measuring tape out for him. I learned how to do that. I wish I'd have gone to architecture school at Auburn. That would have been like the hardest thing you could do. But still, I've seen architectural renderings, what they look like, of what a job's going to look like when it's finished a lot. That's going to be beautiful at Vanderbilt. Are they going to get out of their own way? Because they got a lot of boosters that would love to be asked to help Vanderbilt win if they're serious about it. And you and George Plaster and Johnny Ballpark Franks, we have y'all on a lot from Nashville. Y'all are all in the same camp. Like, let loose what you got. See what you could do.
Well, look, they're spending a lot of money on athletics facilities. But here's the thing. From the time that the plans were drawn up to the time they broke ground, it took too long, I think. And B, this thing called NIL comes along. And I'm not saying facilities are irrelevant, because they're not. You want to make everything in your program as nice as they can. But hey, kids are willing to play in a lesser facility if they're making more money these days. And so the whole thing is shifted to NIL. They were slow to react to that. They're getting on board, but they're still going to be behind everybody else. I still think they're going to be 16 of 16 in terms of coaching staff budget when Oklahoma and Texas hit the league. And all the focus is on facilities right now, but there's a lot of ROI out there for the taking in those other spots too, and they're just behind.
I just think money alone is not what matters most, is it? Because look at Texas A&M.
No, but it matters some.
But it does. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes large amounts of money come with too many cooks in the kitchen, and that's why some teams don't win. But then Vanderbilt's kind of been on the other end of that spectrum.
Well, you've mentioned it before. Tim Corbin moved out of the athletic administration building to get away from all the, let's call it what it is, toxic losing. It's not okay to lose. Now but Tim Corbin might be the best coach in America of any sport when you think about it. You probably have a relationship with him. I don't know him. I know a lot about him. I've watched his career for a long time, and why not make him, we don't do it anymore, but wouldn't you love it if he was the athletic director and baseball coach at Vanderbilt? You think he wouldn't demand excellence instead of these guys walking around?
One time he wanted it, but I mean, I thought when they fired Malcolm Turner, what I would have done is I would have let Tim take over the athletic department for a few months until they found the right guy. I think Tim knows a lot of what needs to be changed, who needs to be fired, what policies needs to change. And I would have given them carte blanche to keep the next guy maybe from being the bad guy right off the bat.
Yeah.
And plus, sometimes like when you come in and you take another job, if you just start going and firing at everybody, even if that's the right thing, there's some complications and trust issues are going to come with that. I mean, it's just a hard thing.
Yeah.
But that's what they should have done. That's not what they did. But he is, I don't think people realize how good of a coach he was. And I apologize. I may have said this on your show before. They're their baseball was every bit as bad as their football was when
Yeah.
he took the job, or close to it.
Yeah.
They hadn't won, and they hadn't been in an NCAA tournament in almost a quarter century. I started covering him his second year here, and I know, people have said, well, they had an advantage with the scholarships and all the extra money through Opportunity Vanderbilt. Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of kids that were still paying six figures of tuition over a career. I could say, hey, here's a half scholarship. Well, you still got to come up with $40,000 a year to pay out of pocket. So there was that. And I think people have kind of missed that in all the scholarship discussion. But yeah, I mean, it worked for him because he was able. I mean, you're not totally separated from the school. They write your paycheck and they admit your students and all those things. But he did a masterful job of separating that program from the elements of campus that drag it down. So, I mean, it's not just the record, it's how he did it that's been remarkable.
Well, and I'm sitting there looking at some comments. I'm trying to paraphrase them. They either come in on YouTube or Facebook. I don't know where they're coming. A lot of them are texted to me. So I'm trying to get people's comments in, but like that, money really matters when you don't have any. You're damn right. That's exactly right. Yeah. Paul in Memphis, Vandy needs to get out of their own way. Again, I'm just a sentimental person. If I know someone that goes to a school, I follow it. I pay attention. But my grandfather and his brother went to VMI, went to law school at Vanderbilt, and so we always, kind of followed them because of that. And I've got a lot of friends up there in Nashville, and they're already buying tickets, hoping Auburn goes to the Music City Bowl. And I've been to Nashville, go up there a lot. I was up in Clarksville again for Thanksgiving. It's just right there. I will say this, though, Chris, the need for you and George Plaster and Johnny Ballpark Franks, what you do, I'm going to focus just on you. We got to get you on radio. And I don't know. I think you have way more freedom like what we do. Podcast, radio stations pick us up. Great. And they do that. But we have complete freedom of speech with what we do. And if we need to break in on something, we can do it. And the First Amendment is ardently and fervently revered on here. And I'm proud to end every show. I remember Coach Sherrill telling me the first time we had him on a couple of years ago, he said, I like the way you end your show. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, you always end it with a message of faith. And I do. I always say, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of our listeners and our viewers. We're in the South. Okay. And I listen to the sports radio in Nashville, and it's just all about Will Levis and everybody screaming at the top of their lungs about Will Levis and Rabel. I mean, I can't take it. And I get you on here, and it's like I'm talking to a specialist, like you can pivot and cover all these different schools and what's going on. Be careful, man, because I see it in Memphis. Tigers and the Grizzlies. Look, I love the University of Memphis. I do. And the Grizzlies too. But they act like the SEC doesn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, I know. I'm drinking coffee.
I agree with you. I think that sports media is kind of an echo chamber that nobody wants to. Well, you just need to spend all your time talking about the NFL because that's what people care about, and so because that's what people care about. Well, it gets to be kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy after a while, and to a degree, that's right. And I'll give you the other way of thinking is right. We started Southeastern 14 because my way of thinking was everybody and their brother is out there talking about SEC football, but nobody's talking about SEC basketball that much until maybe February or March, particularly March. There weren't a lot of people out there talking about SEC baseball, although D1's changed that. And I just thought, with that space being so empty from a conference-wide level, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to talk football just because it's the SEC and you have to talk football. But there's so many people out there doing that you can't not talk football.
Yeah.
The lesson in it for us is football. We learn quickly still gets the biggest audience, but I still don't think that negates the other stuff. I do think that, like you see it in Tennessee. Tennessee fans talk a lot. They used to talk about how nobody cares about baseball. You know, it's not an interesting sport. They used to make fun of Vanderbilt fans for caring about baseball. Well, then they started winning and they saw what the product was and how great it is. And that was their moment. And I think it's great to have Tennessee good in baseball and engaged. I think it makes everything more fun when all programs are engaged and their fan bases are passionate about more than just football. I think it makes it for a better league. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question there or not. But that's how I see it. I do think that bigger picture media gets very myopic on a couple things. It's mostly NFL and pro sports. And I think a lot of stuff gets neglected that people do have an interest in. And oh, by the way, we'll probably have more interest in if there were places to go where you could listen to it talked about intelligently.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it is so many of the people nowadays don't know what they're talking about. And they're just throwing stuff up against the wall and hoping it sticks. I like pro sports. I do. But the college fans are just fanatical. It's a different mentality. But I'm against anything that makes college sports more like pro sports on any level. We've got to deal with NIL. It's a necessary evil. There's nothing we can do about it. Okay. While it's here, you better do the best job you can. But the free market's going to fix all this stuff. Good luck going to wealthy people out in Belmead who have built fortunes. You know, some of them were born on third base and think they hit a triple. I get that in anywhere, you go to where there's a lot of money. It doesn't matter. But you go to people who have a lot of money and try doing it more than once to get them to invest money in an unproven 17, 18-year-old kid who comes in there and goes over like the Hindenburg. Next time they're going to say, hey, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
I don't disagree with all that, but I do disagree with some of it. And the last part that you ended with, I mean, you're right. The system is ripe for kids getting checks and, next thing you know, they're sitting out bowl games and rivalry games. And it's been I mean, that part of it's problematic. The part of it that's also problematic, well, there's many parts of it. And this is where I disagree with you. Mike Leach said it best. And I think I've said this on your show before. So I apologize to the people who are hearing it again if I did. But I think this summed it up. And he said this at his last SEC Media Day. He said, imagine if you took the NFL, gave everybody year-to-year contracts, an unlimited salary, unlimited free agency, and unlimited salary cap. How would that work? And he wasn't wrong. Now, where I agree with you, I think I always thought I might not necessarily like a lot of things about it, but I thought it would be interesting if everything got unleashed and everything was on limits, because it's kind of a truth serum. If you're allowed to pay as much for something or as little for something as you want, what would that look like? So I think we're kind of seeing what the market for players might be like. Now, the market's going to refine as people make their mistakes like you outlined. But I don't think you can have chaos either like you have, where you've got kids playing for one team and negotiating with the team they're going to play, that they're playing tomorrow. And all the incentives and the chaos, there's no trust there. We have to have trust in the process. And that goes to coaches who are shopping to replace these kids and kids who are looking to get out of playing for the school where they are to go somewhere else. I do think that it's interesting in the fact that we see what people are willing to pay for guys, but I think there needs to be some limits put on it too. They agree by, and what the NFL does too, that I like in the NBA, man, if you get caught tampering, they don't play around.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I don't blame anybody for tampering, right? Like if a kid is going to go into the portal, you don't just give up a big scholarship to know that there's nothing waiting in return. So as much as I don't like tampering, if it was my kid, What I tell them, hey, buddy, go hit the portal. Let's just see what it brings. If you don't know, you need to know what that looks like on the other side. But because the system is the way it is, it has just created this chaos where the conversations that coaches have with players are different than they've ever had. The players have so much of the power. Your coach can be recruiting over you, having made one set of promises in the living room, and eyeing a kid who's better than you for your job. This is no way to go either.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at, and I talk to people in the workforce, in outside of sports all the time, because I do, financial advisory practice outside of this. I've got 2 computer screens set up here in my office. And I talk to people in accounting and just different fields, and they're going, these young kids today that we're hiring it's sad. You got to hold their hand. You got to tell them what to do. If you yell at them and rip them a new one, they go to HR and they whine and they complain because they've been coddled their whole lives. I mean, I tell you what's fun to watch as a parent is these kids that are pushed along to the front of the line and just given a free pass all through, elementary school, middle school, and high school because they're a good athlete or, whatever, the family's got money or something like that. And then mommy and daddy ball is over and they've got to stand on their own, sua sponte. That was something I love that term, of your own accord. That's when you find out who really can make it, I mean, if you've been given everything your whole life, you don't know if you may know the cost of everything, but you know the value of nothing. If you don't know how to treat people, and watch how people who have a lot treat people who can do absolutely nothing for them. Think about that. You walk down the street and my wife always says, when you see these people on the streets, they're homeless and they're looking through, she goes, somewhere out there in America, there's a family that stays up at night worrying sick about them.
Yeah.
Just, people flippantly will say our thoughts and prayers are with people. Are you serious? Really? I hope they really are, because I do. I pray that every day to help people who are hurting and suffering in any way, help them out.
Yeah.
But I look at what's going on in the job market. It's serious, guys. It is really serious that you're allowing these kids to just transfer every time something tough happens to them. Would you ever give that kind of advice to your own children? Are you giving more in NIL to your school than you do to your own children? Are you taking away from what you're tithing to your church? Think about this stuff. That's why I'm saying the free market's going to fix it. It's going to be okay.
You've said something to upset my dog. I don't know what. This guy's something when he gets going.
I love that dog. I love dogs and cats. Don't worry.
This one, we love him, but man, he's a challenge. Yeah, I mean, some of this stuff is nothing new, but I do think things have shifted. I'll give you a good analogy. We live in a nice suburb of Nashville, everything that you'd want around us. Mm-hmm. And it's COVID time. We're coming out of that. Everything's open and back up. We go out to our local burger establishment to eat, and the restaurant is maybe 20% of capacity, and we had to wait forever because they still didn't have enough servers. 6 months later, the restaurant's closed, and there's no good reason for that. It's a successful chain. It's workplaces. By all means, it should have worked where we were, but that was a little bit of a red flag to me when you have situations like, I know we're getting way off of where we went, but
exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you really you can't find people to work in a high population area where wages are fair and there's a market for your service. I don't know. We have some issues today.
Well, I mean, we went to a pharmacy to pick up my wife's prescription. Was Sunday, I think it was, coming through Memphis, and said the drive-through at Walgreens at Poplar and White Station in Memphis, in the heart of the busiest traffic in town, is temporarily closed due to a lack of staff.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, people, this is what you get when you coddle people. If you don't hold people accountable, and that's why coaches, some of them are just walking away from the scene of an accident. That's essentially what they're doing. And you're right. And you go out any place you go, I watch attitude. I was getting fast food at a Crystal a few weeks ago in 20 minutes, and they served me, hamburgers that are stale and cold. And I said, this is unacceptable. And the girl's attitude was horrible. And I said, I don't need your attitude. I've got my own. And she, would you like a refund? And I said, yeah, I got a refund and went somewhere else, and it wasn't much better. Yeah. This is what we're going to get. Not enough people in America ever went to East Berlin or in the Soviet bloc, the Iron Curtain, and saw what this stuff gets you. And in sports, if you don't have a locker room full of guys after a loss that are mad and upset, and some of them in tears, you're going to continue to have a locker room full of guys that are not upset and don't care and are more concerned about their personal NIL deals. That's what you're going to get, people. If you think that, Deion's done some good things to create interest for college football at Colorado, but I cannot stand that garbage term. Everybody wants their bag.
Yeah.
I detest that.
Well, look, I'm not going to, I do think a lot of our issues are spiritual in nature. And I think we've got a system, as much as I like the free market, as much as I think it solves things, the system as it exists, I think empowers the bad actors more than it does the good actors. And that's really my jumping off point.
Yeah, no, you're right. And so we're looking at college sports, and okay, let's look at Vanderbilt basketball. They never had a losing season at Memorial Gymnasium ever until Bryce Drew got there, and the wheels have just fallen off. Is it any better with Jerry Stackhouse? All we ever hear about is how well dressed he is.
It doesn't seem a lot better off. They lost to Presbyterian opening night. They almost lost USC Upstate, and the two most competitive teams they played were both last week in Vegas. NC State, maybe an NCAA tournament team, and Arizona State, maybe an NIT team, both beat them. I mean, we could unpack that in a lot of ways. I would think if he's the answer, it would have shown through more by now. And there's some fundamental issues with him that you could spot the first week he got from campus that you thought it wouldn't work. And I think those things have been factors in it not working. Yeah. And it's inexcusable. I mean, Memorial Gymnasium, that's the social thing to do in Nashville, is to be seen and attend Vanderbilt basketball. And what's happening is the pro sports can swallow up and suck up all the oxygen in the room. I hate to see that, but hey, you're putting out great content. I know we text a lot, and tell people what's going on about all the stuff you're doing, improvements and all with Vandy Rivals and Southeastern 14. Soon to be, you're going to have to do some renovating on the back wall there, the Southeastern 16. Where are those other pennants going to go? Well, that's kept me up at night because those things are pretty tightly packed in there. If you can see, there may be a circular pennant configuration with two more in there. If I can I haven't figured that part out yet. But if we got this far, we'll get there. Southeastern 14 is our YouTube channel. That's where we put most of our work. I think we're going to be rolling out a revamped website, but I don't want to get ahead of myself there. Most of our stuff is at YouTube. And what we do, I always say, if you want to know your beat, you're going to be better off going to your local beat writer for Arkansas basketball or Missouri football or whatever than you are me and the guys that work with me. But if you really want to keep an eye on what everybody's doing at one place, I think we do as good a job as anybody. We focus on football, baseball, men's basketball. Might be adding another one. It's way too early to tease that, but that's what we do. And if you're looking for that, sometimes concisely and sometimes not as concisely, we're here for you.
Hey, look, I think it's great stuff. This is what I love. People want to drill down local and get big picture at the same time, but you're true grit journalism. That's what people want. You ask questions. You're not afraid to ask tough questions, and you're not trying to be the most popular person in the room. You're trying to be the one that gets answers to the questions people have. So proud to have you on here and look forward to having you on next week. By the way, is that a beagle or a basset hound, that dog?
We're not really sure what he is, to be honest.
Okay.
We got him as a stray. He was advertised as a Shih Tzu.
Yeah.
There's definitely something else in him because I've never seen a 25-pound Shih Tzu in my life.
Yeah.
But he is a live wire. He keeps us on our toes. We love him, but he's crazy.
Hey, I love all dogs. I'll say that. Chris, let's do it again next week. Thanks so much for taking time to join us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
You bet. God bless you, man. Thanks. Jordan Hill on here, 24/7 Sports Georgia, checks in with us. Again, what a day, man. Dudley, Dawson, Hogville.net on with us. David Schultz, Locked on Sunbelt. That's Chris Lee, Vandy Rivals, Southeastern 14. Dudley and I were texting last night. He goes, I don't know what we're going to talk about. Nothing to talk about at Arkansas. Man, Harley sales are way up. Motorcycles. Gentlemen, start your engines. Who's going to show up at the press conference wearing a neck brace? I asked Dudley that. You know somebody is. Maybe SEC shorts guys will. But now, Georgia, you already had your room reserved a year ago probably in Atlanta for the SEC championship against Alabama. It's going to be a heck of a game. You got Alabama number 8 in the rankings. Nobody's ever gone from 8th and made it into the Final Four. But has anybody ever been 8th and beaten a team that has the longest win streak in SEC history and is going for a three-peat of national championships? The stakes are big Saturday, aren't they?
Definitely. And, in the case that Alabama were to win, I think the committee's going to have quite a mess on its hands because does Georgia still get in? Does Alabama move, like you just said, Rob? Do they move up to at least 4 and make it into the playoff? I think for the committee's sake and for the committee's sanity, I have to imagine they're rooting for Georgia just to try to avoid as much chaos as possible. But, we do our podcast, the Junkyard Dogcast, and we do it live, and someone, pointed out that was watching, that the SEC could wind up getting left out of this thing. I do think that that's a very real possibility if Georgia were to get beat. I know that it would be a mess. I know that the committee would be talking about what happens on Sunday for years to come. And again, it makes me excited for next year with a 12-team playoff because I think, I saw some of the projections. I think it was Ross Dellinger at Yahoo had posted, what the playoff would look like with a 12-team, and it would be like Georgia with a bye, Alabama playing Missouri. There's some good matchups we could see, but it's definitely going to make for a very exciting and chaotic end to the 4-team playoff era of the sport.
Well, it is, and you think about the anticipation. Alabama, where they were, and they're number 8. They have not been able to get back since that Texas loss. And there's this narrative. I don't like it. I mean, I don't give a flip if I went to Auburn or which I did. I graduated from Auburn, but just looking at it objectively, there's been a narrative on how can we get Georgia out of the college football playoff from the first game of this season. There's so much envy from the Ohio State, the Big Ten, the Minders, and the media. They want Georgia. So if Alabama were to win 21-20 against Georgia Saturday, I mean, they think, okay, we got Georgia out, and then Bama wouldn't be in. That's where we are right now. But what they're doing is they're giving Kirby Smart the most incredible motivation to use to get his team ready. And nobody wants you. They don't think y'all belong. That's what's scary for Georgia's opponents. And they're healthy, aren't they?
No, they're not healthy, Rob. They've got a lot of questions on offense going into this game. I mean, Brock Bowers didn't play against Georgia Tech. I think he'll be back. The big question to me is Lab McConkey. I had reported leading into the Georgia Tech week that there was real concern about him going forward. Didn't play against Tech. We'll have to just see on Saturday. I really have my doubts. The offense is really the question where those guys need to get healthy. And they got a few questions with Jamon Dumas-Johnson and Julian Humphrey on the other side. But, I was honestly sort of expecting Michigan to jump Georgia last night. I'm not saying that they should, but I thought that there was a chance. And that, in that point, I think, had that happened, I think Georgia could have jumped back to 1 if they beat Alabama. But, yeah, I mean, I think the mantra for Kirby and this team has to be leave no doubt on Saturday. And that's easier said than done. I'm not someone who thinks Georgia's just going to go in there and name the score, because I think this is a very dangerous Alabama team. But if they get in, you do not want to be in a situation when it comes to the playoff where you need help. And, this has been a year where on the whole, it's been pretty much chalk. There's not been a ton of upsets at the top. There's been some really good games and there's been some exciting finishes. But for the most part, we've seen the teams we expect to win those games. So if Georgia were to come up short against Alabama, you're hoping for a whole lot of chaos in the span of about 12 hours. And it's just not something we've seen a ton of this year in college football.
Well, there's all these crazy scenarios. And I saw one this morning and I was looking at it and it just thinks, I don't here it's sort of, I'm looking at it and I'm trying to find, I read it and it made me think, okay, on the college football playoff selection, team chaos. Alabama barely beats Georgia. Oregon beats Washington 10 plus points. Michigan beats Iowa. FSU wins handily over a good Louisville 10-2 team. Texas whips Oklahoma State by 28 or more points. Your 4 playoff teams then might be Michigan, Oregon, FSU, and Texas. So Alabama left out. And Georgia, that's a crazy world we live in. There's just, look at the trilogy that Georgia had to play: Missouri at home, Ole Miss at home, and they had to play at Tennessee. They won them all 3. They're getting no credit for that. Everybody has it in their mind. Back when everybody was repeating the same stupid stuff during the summer, you and I talked about it. It's easy when you're sitting on the beach drinking a cold road soda to say, oh, they got an easy schedule. They don't play anybody. It's a little different when the season gets here and you got to play them, isn't it?
Yeah, and some of those teams proved to be a lot better. I mean, I thought Missouri would be, very much struggling to make a bowl game, and they wound up being the second best team in the East. Ole Miss was very good this year. It's one of those things where you go into the season with an idea for these teams, but you have to kind of shift with how the teams play. And, yeah, I mean, that schedule wound up being significantly tougher than we expected, especially November, especially when you consider having to go to Tennessee to play that game. To me, the only situation where if we say Georgia loses this game, the only situation where I see them still having a playoff chance is sort of the situation you set up, Rob, where it's like a 1-point game, a 2-point game, and they lose to Alabama. But yeah, I mean, it's going to get weird. And, looking at these games, there's not a ton of them that I feel like, the underdog may wind up winning. I think Oregon might be the favorite in that game. I could see that one, Oregon and Washington, going either way. Other than that, unless Florida State without their quarterback, struggles again, they kind of got off to a slow start against Florida. I feel like this is going to go chalk. And I am curious just how Texas handles this because, part of me does kind of feel bad for Texas. They beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Do you have that really close loss with Oklahoma taking care of business the rest of the way? And it looks like they're going to need a whole lot of help to have a chance. And sometimes that's just how it breaks. I went through going back through a few years, just trying to look for the last team to go undefeated in 3 straight regular seasons before Georgia did. It was actually Nebraska, 93, 95. But you look through those years, and sometimes you got 6 or 7 teams that are undefeated. Sometimes you don't got any team that's undefeated. It's just sort of how things break. And to me, it just remains so funny that the last year of this 14 playoff, you've got multiple teams and several that are going to get left out who have very strong cases to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah. And this year, I mean, can you remember more possible scenarios for the 4 teams than what we have right now? And isn't it ironic? This is the end of the 4-team college football playoff. And next year we start the 12-team college football playoff. Isn't this the greatest game ever?
Now, maybe it's because I was born in a place where I'm a natural Atlanta Falcons fan, but like I can't see, I will never wrap my head around why people prefer the NFL. I get that, that's the competition level, but man, college is just so fun. And the only thing I can compare this to, Rob, is like when I covered high school sports for the Black Auburn News, and you're looking through the playoff scenarios for these local teams to make it. And you're just going through the region with like 2 weeks left in the regular season and be like, all right, Beauregard's got to win this game and Tallahassee needs to lose this. And it's just like got like a big dry erase board with all the different scenarios. That's the only thing I can compare it to. It's pretty wild to see us with, 1 week essentially left before the postseason and the playoffs. And to know that, what we've got written down as the top 4 could wind up looking extremely different by the time they actually announce the playoff on Sunday.
Yeah. Reeltown takes on Macedonia, and Notasulga takes on Lochapoka. And then you think about Tuskegee, you think about, like you say, Beauregard. There's just, Tallahassee. I love these names, and I love how you these high school football programs. You keep working your way up. You never really arrive. You always stay hungry. But it is exciting to think about next year in November. Every time the top 25 rankings come out, everybody in that ranking group is going to be thinking, we got a chance.
Definitely. And I think it's going to be interesting because you are going to have some wild cards in that mix, getting some of those group of 5 schools. Again, some of these SEC teams, when I was still at OA, Justin Lee, who is the sports editor there, he made a great point when the 12 team was announced that, a team like Auburn, this benefits greatly because, they may lose to an Alabama, they may lose to Georgia, but if they, some of those SEC teams that are not quite at the tier where they're going to be playing in Atlanta in early December can still make the playoff, and you get hot, like right now, like I'd mentioned that, proposed, hypothetical of Alabama and Missouri. I don't think I'd want to play Missouri right now. Cody Schrader has been playing outstanding. Eli Drinkwitz made the case he should be a Heisman candidate. I don't think that's going to happen, but like they're really hot right now that you don't really want to play them. It's going to be super interesting to see how it plays out. And again, it'll be super exciting next year. I do want to say this too, Rob, mentioning Tallahassee, Georgia men's basketball is getting ready to play at Florida State. And I had to look at every time I mentioned Tallahassee because I've written Tallahassee for so long that I was like, all right, I got to spell this right. Not Tallahassee, Tallahassee.
Yeah. No. And I remember just, you think about the high school football playoffs. You've got Phoenix City Central playing Thompson coming up this week. High school football, we love it. It's what the lifeblood that feeds college. College, of course, feeds the NFL. Lauren Smith. Lauren, what do you got? Well, Larry, I got Jordan Davis Hill on here. He's one of the finest journalists ever here, 24/7 Georgia. I love him. Lauren Smith sat on this show the morning of the Georgia-Florida game, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. He said, I think it's maybe time that the NFL helps us with NIL. He said, we provide them with this unbelievable college football programs with all the players they need. Look what Major League Baseball does. Very good points by a very smart man from Wrightsville, Georgia. He shares the same hometown as Herschel Walker.
Yeah, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but it's a fair point, and yeah, I mean, it's just it's one of those things, especially with the way everything's changing with NIL. People are throwing out ideas left and right, but yeah, if there's someone who studied the sport more than Lauren Smith has, then I have not met them. I can promise you that.
Yeah, Lauren is he's just unbelievable, and gets up at 4:35 in the morning because that's when I get the text from him, and he's going for the long walks. And I got his book. You can see back behind me up there on the wall. What do you got? I like the spelling on that, but the stories, the history, the traditions, the heroes. I had a very smart person, Brendan Martin, Buddy Martin's son, who's working with us, and is just a brilliant mind in sports, media, and communications and production. And he said, the history of college football and the stories, it's evergreen content, meaning that it just gets better. It's always there. And that's what I love about it.
Definitely, and it's always been fun. It's fun to be around a guy a little bit like Lauren that, growing up. I can remember my dad had like 5 or 6 VHSs, and it's just like Georgia highlights. And of course, there's Munson and Lauren on there. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. When you do any job, there's parts of a job you like and parts of a job you don't like. But I always try to keep that in mind because, that's stuff I grew up with. So to be a part of it now is super, super special.
Yeah. Georgia, Ladd McConkey, Brock Bowers. There's so many names that are going to be forever cemented on the Mount Rushmore of college football for people going for this three-peat. Do you get the sense that as they keep climbing this wall, there's any anxiety on this team, or is Kirby and Will Muschamp, Glenn Schumann, Mike Bobo, hey man, we got this?
I think they feel okay, but I think they understand that they've got a job to do. And I thought this was a very good point that Kendall Milton brought up on Tuesday. He said, Coach Smart has told us we've never beaten Alabama in Atlanta. Georgia and Alabama have played several times in the SEC title game, and it's never happened. Georgia has never gotten the upper hand. The last time these two teams met, Georgia did win in that 33-18 victory in the national title game. But I think that was very smart of Kirby to kind of put that carrot out there and say, look, they've had several chances to beat Alabama with SEC title on the line. Kirby's someone who's always put a ton of value in the SEC championship, always quick to point out that he's got as many national championships as he has SEC titles, and just a testament to how hard it is to win it. I think that was a very smart motivational tactic to point that out. And it's only going to add fuel to the fire. Sounds like practice has been pretty chippy, pretty high energy this week. And if you're a Georgia fan, that should get you really excited for Saturday.
What are you most concerned about with what Alabama does? And again, what happened in the Auburn game doesn't mean it's going to happen in the SEC championship. And Auburn is seeking an answer from the IRS if they can write off that loss as a charitable donation. Kevin Skarbinski, love him. He's on the round table with us most every Saturday morning, said that Bruce Arians, formerly, Alabama assistant coach, he's talking about the 97 Iron Bowl when they called that pass play that Ed Sissom out of Etowah County, Gadsden, was hit by Martavius Houston against Auburn, and he fumbled. They said that was the worst play call in Iron Bowl history. And now it's been replaced by Auburn rushing only 2 Saturday. And I think everybody in the world is going, you can't be serious. And they had a commercial break while Milroe stood in the pocket. He was there so long and came back. Still, Milroe still standing in the pocket, and say, up there, he's going to throw, and it's good. What are you most worried about, though, with them?
Well, I think it is Milroe, and I think it's not necessarily him scrambling for yards, but keeping plays alive. Now, Georgia's going to be smart enough to rush more than 2 people after him, but, that's how they're going to create explosive plays, is by trying to keep plays alive, to get guys open. I asked Javon Bullard, one of Georgia's safeties, about that on Tuesday, and he said, you just have to stick with your guy. And he said, they're going to make plays. Like, that's going to happen, but you just have to try to contain them as best you can. I really like Georgia's chances coming into this game. My biggest key is Georgia being able to run the ball because I think that Alabama defensive front's pretty suspect. I mean, Auburn had a very strong day running the ball, and you have to keep in mind that Alabama knew Auburn wasn't a threat to throw the ball. I mean, they haven't been all year. Georgia is multifaceted and multidimensional that you have to keep the pass in mind, which makes me think that Kendall Milton and Daijun Edwards have a chance to have a really strong game and try to get Georgia to 13-0.
Yeah. Last question. I know you've got a timeline you got to meet. Kelly Lee, will the SEC as a whole be hurt by playoffs? I don't know if he means this year or going forward.
I'm assuming he means going forward. I don't think so because I think that means there will, we'll probably see 3 teams. I don't know if we'll ever see 4 SEC teams, but, we'll see 2 or 3 SEC teams in there every year. The playoffs this year, I think there is a chance if Georgia loses. And again, it's kind of a product of the SEC on the whole being a little down this year. I mean, it's been Georgia and Alabama. Missouri's kind of gotten there. LSU, if it had a defense, would really be in that argument. And then everybody else has been a little down. I think when you look forward, it will help the SEC. It'll give more teams a chance. It's going to hurt teams like Georgia because when they've gotten to the playoff, they haven't had a ton of trouble. I think they would have been very happy just sticking with 4 teams, but it does give them a little bit margin for error going forward because if they were to lose a game in the regular season, still have a very good chance of making the 12 team.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Let people know how they can keep up with you and all the great work you do. And as always, we really appreciate you taking time to join us on Sidelines.
Definitely. I appreciate it, Rob. Jordan D. Hill on Twitter at Dogs247 as well, and over at Dogs247.com. A lot of stuff going on, coaching changes, transfer portal, and a big SEC championship game. Busiest time of year, but Rob, I'd have it no other way.
Yeah, and look, and they can go to the Junkyard Dog podcast. It's up there on YouTube and everywhere, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, Junkyard Dogcast. Go to YouTube, go to Spotify, Apple Music, all that fun stuff. It's all up there.
I'm going to go watch it here in a little bit. Hey, thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Okay. You bet. We got a few minutes left here. And, and I think that's a good question by Kelly. And let me tell you what, folks, send in your questions. I can't, I just knocked my coffee all over the place. At least it didn't short us, but I was trying to type in questions. There's a bunch of questions that are texted to me or comments that I wanted to get on. But I'm with Jordan. I mean, some schools may not like it, but you're going to see 3. And I think you will see a year where there's going to be 4 SEC teams in the playoff. But when Bill Hancock was on the show, he said, you're going to take the 6th highest ranked conference champions. That's what you're going to see. But 12 teams, 13 and 14 will scream loudly that they were left out of the playoff. But it's fun. It creates a lot of interest, and I think that's a good thing. You want people following the sport year-round. Look, we have run out of time. We're going to go ahead and knock it out now. But let me say, before we leave again, the Vitamin Shop, they've got 2 locations. Now, one of them is open. I want to remind you, this is down in Olive Branch, Mississippi, the Vitamin Shop, 5338 Goodman Road, Olive Branch, Mississippi. Their hours are 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. And within the next 2 or 3 months, they'll be opening a second location in Oxford, Mississippi. This is Justin Ross. A lot of you know him here in Memphis. I'm going to tell you what, I know him. I've known him a long time. He knows what he's doing, he and his partners, and they're hiring people. When you go into the Vitamin Shop, hey, I'm wanting to start running. I swim, I bike. I just want to get in shape. They'll get you the right stuff, but they also, you hear a lot about probiotics, working to make your gut healthier, your stomach healthier. They have people that actually are trained and know what they're doing and can give you advice. Good advice is priceless. The Vitamin Shop, 2 locations, Olive Branch, Mississippi, and soon Oxford, Mississippi will be opened. You'll be hearing a lot more about them on this show going forward. And look, when you're out and about today, Red River Ford Toyota Wynne, Arkansas, 45 minutes from Memphis. You saw it on the screen earlier. No vehicle payments until 2024. They got a lot of vehicles in stock. Service department open Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m., 12:30 p.m. And again, folks, support our sponsors. Check out our website. That's what we're here for, is to get great information out to you. We're growing this show. Got a lot of listeners, got a lot of viewers, and we cannot thank you enough for being there with us. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Got a great show in store for you tomorrow. There's a lot to talk about. Keep your eyes on the transfer portal, folks. It is going to really crank up. You've got this first window coming up, and December 20th is the December signing period. You've got 3 weeks, and it's here. That's why everybody's moving in such a hurry. Hey, we're out of here. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and do something great for people. See you tomorrow.